Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it is Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast. I had a few too many Daddy Sodas over the weekend. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. Got a bunch of podcasts now. Love them all. Got a YouTube page, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Should mention, by the way, Stephania Bell was on today's Ross Tucker football podcast. Whew. You got to listen to that one. She detailed her entire E60 feature with Alex Smith, who was just cleared for full football activity on Friday. You got to check out today's Ross Tucker football podcast. That'll be posted first at Ross Tucker Pod on social media, Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL across all the different platforms. I mentioned the new YouTube page. I will be giving out a cameo style shout out to one subscriber every week. What does that mean? It means I'm going to pick one of you who subscribes to our new YouTube page, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. And I'm going to say, who do you want a shout out for? Your dad, your mom, yourself, your wife, your buddies, your fantasy league. I don't care. Let me know. And I'll record like a 30-second video and it'll be personalized from me to whoever you want it. And I'll email you the YouTube link. It is awesome. Speaking of YouTube, by the way, we actually have a full-fledged YouTube star on today's show. He will be our guest, the great Emory Hunt. You can check him out on Twitter like I do at FBall Game Plan. You can also check him out, Football Game Plan, on YouTube. He joined myself and my buddy Matt Waldman today. Matt, of course, at Matt Waldman on Twitter, and MattWaldmanRSP.com, so you can get the rookie scouting portfolio, the guide that the pros get. So right now, okay, we've got a guy that writes a publication that NFL teams get, and we've got a full-fledged YouTube superstar. So why am I feeling like a lower sense of self-esteem right now? I played in the NFL. I went to Princeton. Why are you guys making me feel bad about myself today, Matt?
Well, I don't know. I mean, all I can say is that I laugh because, you know, I've known Emory for years and it's fun to like talk shop with him and talk about prospects. But I always have people who say to me, you know, where do you find these guys that you like, that you're talking about? And I'm thinking, you know, you're like deep sea fishing. I'm thinking, nah, I'm just scratching the surface. Like Emory Hunt's like emerging from the submersible, you know, and like the work that he does is incredible, especially like the visits on campus with various schools where he gets to talk shop and with these guys. And he's just so great on air that, you know, it's just an absolute pleasure that he's on today.
So there's so much to talk about here. I'll start by just welcoming Emory. Emory, thanks for coming on the show. I don't think you've been on before, but I'm glad to have you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, man. You probably should have went to a Sunbelt school. That's what probably would have helped you out a lot, you know, moving forward. But I appreciate you having me on, man. It's good to be here with both of you guys.
All right. So there's so much to get to today. And I'm going to start with this, okay? Kind of a bittersweet day because we are passing the torch from Matt Waldman to Emory Hunt in terms of my official co-host on the College Draft Podcast. It was Fran Duffy for a couple years. Then we went from Fran to Matt Waldman, both of whom did an unbelievable job. And when Matt told me getting so busy and different things and different reasons why you were looking to transition out, we talked about some of Matt's suggestions. And as soon as he said Emory Hunt, I said, that is a great idea. And you know why, Matt? I don't know if I told you this yet, okay? I don't know if I've ever been to a football game and Emory Hunt hasn't been there. I go to like 30 football games a year, and at some point on the elevator, coming out of the bathroom, while I'm filming my press box food video, Emory's like, hey, what's up, Ross? Like, it's scary. I mean, I work a lot. Okay. Like I don't really consider it work. It's 7 days a week. It's kind of a lifestyle. When I tell you people that Emory has no life, Emory has no life. I mean, we talk about, I think our intern Casey posted this on social media last night at Ross Tucker Pod. I talk about the sickness and I talk about the disease. And when Matt produces something that's 1,200 pages, you know the guy has problems. I mean, he's got serious problems. 1,200 pages, and his videos, all the video clips, like Matt's got. I have problems. Matt has problems. Emory might take it to another level. Matt, when I tell you, I've never been to an FCS game that Emory hasn't been at. I'm joking, maybe. I might be joking. I'm not even sure if I'm really joking. So I want to start with that, Matt. How do you know Emory to the point where you even recommend him? Because when you recommended him to me, I was like, you know Emory? Emory's my guy. So how did you know Emory to recommend him to carry the torch here on the College Draft Podcast?
Well, it was pretty easy because, I mean, we met at the Senior Bowl way back. And then before that, I've been following his work. I mean, Emory is one of the first people who's been using YouTube to do football analysis. I mean, he's been doing it for years. And so he was really the guy that inspired me to do a lot of the work that I was doing on that front. And then, we got to talk shop in Mobile, and just over the years, it's just been great because we've had a chance to just kind of compare notes on guys and just talk about the industry. And you just see the work that he does. I mean, I just laugh because it's like, with Emory, it's like, okay, he played running back in college. He was, he's written books. He's done great video work covering NFL and college. He's done some work with college betting that has been like, he's one of the top guys apparently, like at CBS, doing work for CBS Sports with some of the college betting that he did there. He's done fantasy matchup work. That's awesome. I've tried to get him at places where I've worked, to talk with people and say, if there's ever an opportunity, I'm like, but Emory does his own thing. So, he does great on that front anyway, but it's like the work he does on video, the work that he does, just covering all of the different aspects of football is just tremendous. And just, it's just been, for me, it's been inspiring just to have like gotten to know him years ago from, our meetups in Mobile. I mean, like you said, I have the sickness, but I'm tend to be an introvert, but what's funny is like for my little group, I'm kind of the social director at Mobile. So I've always had fun, like calling people up like Emory and Teron Davenport at ESPN, who worked with Emory at the beginning and kind of got his start working with Emory and is now doing great work, with the 4-letter network, so, guys like that. I mean, I've had the pleasure to get to know and be able to like, just kind of be like my 1 day a year or 1 week a year where I'm a social director. And it's like the joke with my friends because they know I'm an introvert and I'm like cooped up in this place all the time. But watching Emory's videos, just like touring different schools and talking with coaches and, whiteboarding everything and covering things from scheme to betting to the whole gamut. I mean, I can't think anybody better who would be doing this, and to be honest with you, I mean, like, I love that I got a chance to do this, but I also love more that I got a chance to suggest him because he could have come before me and I might never have had a shot to do this.
So, okay, let's get to Emory now. Emory, I know your background, but for the listeners, since you're going to be the star of this show moving forward, take us all the way from the start, man. Where you're from? You mentioned playing in the Sun Belt. Where do you live now? And you got about 1 million different things going on, including football game plan on YouTube. So you have the floor now. Tell us your life story.
And I'm gonna give it to you guys like in a nice compact package. But I was born and raised in New Orleans. Played college ball at University of Louisiana. And once I was done, I, like most football players, you want to try to find a way to stay in it. So I coached at my old high school, McMain High School in New Orleans. And after about a year, you know, you have people telling you, man, you went to college, why don't you go get a real job? And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. So I jumped into corporate America and I was a recruiter. And what was interesting was I was number one in the company for about 4 or 5 years, and I hated every minute of it. You know, I didn't like what I was doing, but I was good at it. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to get back into football. And once Katrina hit, they kind of helped the decision pretty quickly because it moved me from New Orleans to right outside New York City. And I was still working with the same company, still recruiting, still speaking at hundreds of high schools across the tri-state area throughout the time I was up here. And the whole time I'm telling kids, follow your passion, do what you want to do. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I really wish I could just be somewhere talking about football. So in 2007, you know, on the phone with my friends, we was complaining about this was 2006, actually. We was complaining about the 2006 draft. And that started the whole conversation about, man, we need to start our own website. So in 2007, we started footballgameplan.com, and we was just talking about football and saying it how we would say it and what we like to see and what we like to cover. And, you know, the biggest thing that got us started was we did two things. One, we did a comedy article about Michael Vick. And that was a very popular article. You know, we was talking about how you know, if he wants to dog fight, or here's some dog fights we like to see. And we had like Scrappy Doo versus Clifford, and you know, Scooby Doo versus the sheepdog from Warner Brothers. So we had that article, and then we had we were the only place probably to predict App State beat Michigan, and so we laid it out perfectly on how it was going to happen. And that blew up, and naturally we got a big following from our FCS counterparts, wanting to know, see more and talk more. And by the time 2008 hit, I was just like, not a lot of people want to read anymore. And I have a broadcasting background. My degree is in mass communications. My minor is theater. I'm pretty, savvy with camera work and being on camera. Plus, I want to get in it. Ideally, I want to be on TV talking football. So we was like, well, YouTube had just came out. And so we started to get all the equipment and try to figure out how to do lighting and, microphones and, all the stuff that you need to make a presentation look good. So we got that. 2009, we launched a YouTube video before anyone was out there on YouTube. And if you look back at the first videos, we filmed them in my apartment back then in Newark, New Jersey. Had blackout curtains and set the setup real nice. It looked good for 2009, but I look back at it now, it's like, man, that's garbage. And so, but it was a start. No one was doing it, and it started to get traction. At first, you saw people commenting about, oh, why does this guy have this suit on, or this, you said this wrong. And then after about the midway point to the season, it started to become more encouraging, and we started to get more likes, and people started to say, man, these dudes are putting in a lot of work. And it kind of took off. And, those YouTube videos early on, we were covering everything from NFL to women's tackle football. And me covering women's tackle football is how I got the opportunity to do my first color commentary gig, which was a women's tackle football playoff game in DC. And from that part, I met the guy that put me in contact with, doing Georgetown games, and from Georgetown to, Division II games, from that to Morgan State, and it just snowballed. So, I'm proof positive. I like to tell people that as if you can, believe you could achieve it. That cliche, but it's so true. What started from a thought has now ended up having me on broadcast, television broadcast, doing college football games, when that's ultimately what I wanted to do. But back in 2006, I had no idea to get from point A to point Z, and just started doing things. And next thing you know, it's snowballed, and here we are.
I think, Emory, you and I have also run into each other at the AFCA convention, right?
Exactly. I'm a member because I was a member since I was coaching, and then always stayed an active member because I'm like you guys. I just love football. And even when I was working at the company, back in New Orleans, I remember I'm 23 years old. I'm in the break room drawing up plays. And here's the thing. I was going to leave the company a year in to go back into coaching. I had like 3 college coaching offers to be a GA at 3 different schools. One was a NAIA program and 2 were FCS programs. And I was getting ready to leave, but I had won an award that year, and I wanted my free trip and the trophy. Because the trophy was a big trophy. I was like, I want the trophy and I want the free trip. And when I come back, then I'm gonna quit. And so I came back, and Katrina hit. So they kind of said, all right, I can't quit now. And that threw everything up in the air. It was sudden change, as we like to call it. And so I had to just stay the course and continue to work as a recruiter. But I used to be in the break room all the time, just drawing up plays, working on my playbook and all kind of stuff that had me doing everything outside of what I was supposed to be, doing as a paid employee with that company.
So the reason why I mentioned that, and for people that don't know, the AFCA is the American Football Coaches Association. It's all of the college coaches across the country and a bunch of high school coaches. I go every year with my recruiting business, Go Big Recruiting. And I remember hanging out with Emory, talking with him. And Matt, I'm there, and coaches are coming up to him being like, hey, man, I like your videos. Hey, man, I see you. You're the YouTube guy. I like your videos. Like more. And again, I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? I'm like on NBC last weekend doing the Army All-American Bowl. Did you see me? No, you saw Emory doing the YouTube videos. So I remember that as well. Okay, a couple of different things, Emory. So first of all, what all are you doing right now? Because you mentioned a bunch of different things over time, but you're going to be a big part of this show. Like I said, you're going to be the star moving forward because I've got a lot going. I break down some of the prospects that I know, but not like Matt, not like Fran, and not like you will. So what all do you have going that people can familiarize themselves with you right now?
Well, it's a lot. We have the Football Game Plan Network where we're producing videos, video content, breaking down the NFL season right now. And throughout that year, we have a college football show. We have fantasy football betting and all that stuff like that, prospects breakdowns. So all that will be on the YouTube channel. We do have 2 TV shows on Game Plus Network, which is Football Game Plan's NFL All 32 show, and subsequently the college football tailgate show, which probably won't happen this year if we don't have college football to the extent that we had it, years previous. But we have those TV shows. You check your local cable listings for the channel. And we also, I also write fantasy content for The Athletic. I do sports betting content, NFL and college football sports betting content for CBS Sportsline. And if there is a college football season, I also do college color commentary. So you'll see me doing games either at Morgan State, some PSAC games, which is Division II conference in Pennsylvania. I do Monmouth games as well. I've done both TV and radio, so you'll see me doing things like that. And where else? I believe that's it, because a lot of it is tied to all of that, football game plan, and it kind of like disperses from there.
So where's the remote that you have that turns that chair into like a cot? Because I know it's somewhere there, and I need to get me a model. And I know you must have one for doing all that stuff.
Well, I joke, I call my car the Black Falcon because I'm always flying somewhere, right? And I'm always on the go. But I think the big part of the perception of me being everywhere, and yeah, I'm at a lot of places, but we live in a heavily concentrated area, so you can get from Montreal to Richmond, Virginia in no time and be back in it. That's like a day trip, so I'm blessed to live in this concentrated area where there's a lot of football, college, pro, in different leagues. So that's the beauty of this area as far as allowing me to dabble in different things and also diversify the content.
There's a lot to get to there, Emory, and a lot that we will get to. I do want to mention that the great thing about Emory is no matter what happens with college football this year, there's going to be a draft next year, and you're going to want to talk about the prospects, and Emory knows them all. Like when I say them all, he's like the number one authority on FCS D2 and D3 prospects. He knows the top guys that Matt and I have hit on the last couple of weeks, and we'll get into his thoughts on those guys. But he knows all of the diamonds in the rough as well. Speaking, by the way, of diamonds in the rough, right now, if you place a pregame bet of at least $25 on your home team in baseball, for every home run they hit in that game, you'll get $5 worth of free bets on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. It's here, by the way. We've got the NBA is back this week. I think it starts Thursday. So get the DraftKings Sportsbook app on your phone now so you can place a bet before you watch the games in the bubble. Bubble bets. Use code Ross when you sign up. For a limited time, all new users can get a sign-up bonus up to $1,000. That's right. DraftKings Sportsbook has a sign-up bonus up to $1,000. Just enter code Ross when you sign up. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or PA only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. So is that your thing, Emory? Do you give people the angle on the FCS and D2 bets for college football?
Yeah, I do. It was interesting. I was at CBS Sportsline. I was number one in both NFL and college bets. The funny part is that I had no idea how bets worked prior to starting to give my analysis to it. I remember how it used to be in college. You'll see, the lines or whatever they call it, and you're like, man, how do you say we're gonna lose by 48 points to Texas? And then there's no way in hell we could lose by that many. And then you find yourself in the middle of the third quarter, you look up at the scoreboard like, damn, we're down 48 points. How the hell they knew that? Like, it's crazy.
that is amazing. All right, so we got your background. So the YouTube page, the one point I want to make about the YouTube page is there's all kinds of content on there. Like if you just want to, it's almost like Cosell's Concepts on Friday on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and we talk like hardcore football stuff. If you just want to learn more about football, you can go to your YouTube page. And I'm going to be on, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'm going to be on it this week or next week. Hopefully we can talk O-line, or maybe we can talk Ivy League or Army football, whatever you want to talk about. But your YouTube page is chock full of basically everything. But if you just want to learn more about football or small school prospects, I don't know that there's a lot of other YouTube pages that have that stuff, Emory.
What's funny is that's where we got started. We were doing the whiteboard stuff before anyone, and also video breakdown, because my background is rooted in coaching. And, I want to portray it's funny because I remember getting to college. In high school was like we had like 10 plays, right? It was, 34 dive or, sprint, draw right, very basic stuff. And so you're thinking, okay, 3 back, 4 hole, go. I get to college and, we're running zone. So I had to learn that whole concept of so it's 15 zone, but I don't have to hit the 5 hole. I can go somewhere else. Like that doesn't make sense to me, right? And so, and then when we get the playbook, first of all, the playbook for a running back was that thick. I was never used to seeing something that I was like, wait a minute, like I'm used to memorizing all the plays, So, and then I see what 15 gut looked like was our zone play, drawn up against 15 different defenses. I was like, I didn't know there was 15 different defenses. And so I'm sitting there just mind blown as a freshman. And so when I, fast forward to football game plan stuff, I was like, okay, let me try to bring people into the X's and O's and try to make it as simple and easy to understand as possible. Because I knew how I was as an 18-year-old, just not understanding the whole concept. But if you can explain it in a simple way, people can, digest it and they get a better understanding of what's going on out there on the field. So that kind of ties into our tagline at Football Game Plan, where football makes sense. We just want to make everything make sense to the layperson and to really explain things, because we know football is a technical game, but you can make it sound so much easier to everyone, and it's easier to get across. It's easier to keep people engaged when you make everything simple to understand.
Last question, Emory, is just small school. Like you love, and you played FBS, but you love the small school. You love D2, D3. I told you you're at every FCS game I've ever been to. Why so much small school love?
Because I know what those prospects, are capable of. When I was in college, we lost all our FCS games, and I remember one time we played Sam Houston State, and we kind of looked at the schedule and thought, okay, we'll win these 3 games before we go play an FBS team, and we're out there in a battle with Sam Houston State, and this quarterback is killing us, right? And it was like Michael Vick out there. He was scrambling around, throwing the ball deep down the field to this 6'5" receiver that we hadn't seen before. He was balling, and we game planned all week to stop the passing game, but we didn't game plan for the quarterback being the 11th man on offense and take it off and running. And seeing that guy play, and and knowing the nation wasn't talking about him, I was like, man, it's probably the best quarterback I ever seen. And so fast forward to now, that quarterback was Josh McCown, who was killing us that night. Throwing the ball to Matt Dominguez, who ended up playing a long time in the CFL. And when I look at that and the guys that I played with in college and seeing how good those guys were that ended up to go on and play professionally, whether it's in Canada or in the Arena League or in the NFL, play for years, I knew there was a lot more talent out there than we were being given to by watching the major networks, and so for me, it was one, trying to showcase everyone that's out there playing ball, that there's a lot of good players, because we know high school recruiting, a lot of it is about, especially for the top tier, it's about finished products. And so you may get a guy that's a 6'4", 185-pound, slowish wide receiver that's not going to go to Clemson or Alabama, but he'll go to, Furman and he'll grow into a tight end. And now he's a dangerous weapon at tight end because he has receiver skills, grew into his body, and now has the exact makeup for a flex tight end. So now he's a premier prospect. So we know about guys that are late bloomers and guys that take a little bit longer to develop. And so knowing that, story, and knowing that that's the part of the recruiting process and how guys' bodies develop, plus I wanted to find a way to carve out a niche for myself. Well, if everybody's talking about these 9 Alabama players all year long, well, I'm going to spend some time talking about these Alabama A&M, Alabama State, those players, in addition to the 9 Alabama players. So therefore, I have more to cover. And especially if these guys are going on to play pro ball, everyone is looking to find content on, well, who the hell we just drafted? And they search the player's name, and here comes Football Game Plan with a full scouting report on player A from Alabama A&Q or something like that,
I love it. Last thing to wrap up the show, just wanted to thank you, Matt, for the last year plus, however long it was. Awesome job carrying the torch. Like I said, a lot of people really, really enjoy it. Got great feedback. Thank you so much for your contributions, and hopefully Emory and I can have you on as a guest sometime.
I would absolutely love it. It's been a great year being able to do this, and I always love being able to talk shop, and it's been fun having Emory on my show. Obviously, I would love to have you on my show as well, Ross, and we can do
anytime. That.
Awesome. So because I would love to get your takes on offensive linemen as well, and a bunch of other players. So the way I look at it is, I definitely look forward to rejoining you guys on the occasions that we can do that, and it's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to listening to you and Emory, as the season unfolds, because I know it's going to be great.
Going to be awesome. Really looking forward to it. It's going to be a unique college football season, one way or another. Looking forward to breaking down the top prospects, no matter what happens with different conferences or whatever. There's a lot of really good players that we have tape on that will be getting drafted next April in the NFL draft, and we're going to break them all down here, one way or the other, here on the College Draft Podcast. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.